Hi, I'm user friendly. This is a patch breakdown of my Eurorack system that I've been using for a little while. Um, just going to do a quick overview and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper on everything. Quick overview. This is the ER-301 by Orthogonal Devices. This is the Nerdseq by XOR Electronics. This is the Make Noise Mimeophone Verb Morphogene. This is the Rossum Electro Assimilator, and this is WMD Muscle. Essentially, how largely how the system is set up is inside of the 301. I have 4 samplers. Each one of those samplers has 120 samples. I have 10 octaves on Nerdseq, so each note corresponds to a particular sample. On the mod output, I have things set up to where a positive voltage, it goes to verb, negative voltage, it goes to mimeophone. The important thing about that is it's not all of the samplers. So I'm not sending, if I have on sampler 1, just to keep things simple, a kick drum, and on sampler 2, a snare drum, I can send just the kick drum or just the snare drum to either one of these effects. That way it's not, everything in the mix getting sent to one of the effects. It's just an aux send. But when I was coming up with this original patch, that was really important to me, that I could send just one sound. That's true for the 301. On the assimilator side, which is just doing drum duties, I have the left and right output. Each one of these sounds are mono. So I can send, generally how I have it set up is the kick and toms, just lower frequency stuff, comes out of the left output. Everything else comes out of the right. That way, if I want to side chain the effects or the samples or whatever, I have the kick at my disposal. The other thing about that is I have, on the zones, I have 8 different kits. So if I change that way I have 8 different kits. I can kind of switch them up on the fly or for different tracks or whatever else like that. And then I have pitch control over the kick and then pitch control over everything else. I found that, like, a lot of times if you have a drum beat going and you want to modulate the pitch around, if you have the kick in there, things can get kind of muddy. It's better to modulate that separately. And I actually lately have only been going positive or taking the pitch up on the kick rather than down. Taking it down seems like it just kind of turns into a rumbly mess. So kind of back to the overview. The mimeophone and verb, they're fed back into the 301. Everything is mixed together at that point, so everything from the assimilator, the samplers in the 301, and the effects. All of that is pumped into the morphogene. On the morphogene, there's a setting in the text file to turn the SOS knob into a dry-wet control. Luke Pop does a quick demonstration on his morphogene walkthrough on how to do that. It's really simple, and it's constantly recording. So I can just kind of randomly turn it completely wet and glitch the whole mix out. It's essentially a data bender, but I think it sounds a little better and is a little bit more capable. It's different from data bender, but still, it's the same idea. And then from there, I'm sending everything into muscle. There's another patch I can do with this setup that allows me to get everything to it's not actually multi-channel, but it's better than nothing. 8, I can get everything down to 8 output, so it would be, the effects, so reverb and delay. That'd be 4 channels. Then all of the samples, there's 2 more channels, and then I can kind of pick and choose which drum hits I would want to send out into my interface. 90% of the time I do stereo out. I think it sounds better. I think it's simpler, and once you're done recording, you have a mixed track ready to go, and you don't kind of get stuck in that whole, mixing phase. So on the 301, this is in the global chains. Here's the sampler. Here's the 120 samples. Okay. So this is in, again, this is the global area. If you go up to the top here, this is where everything is sent to. So in tracks, I have track 1, and these are global inputs left and right. So that's how I get them kind of up to here. The reason I have it set up that way is because channel 3 and 4 are going to go to the mimeophone and verb. So here's track 1, left and right, and then a VCA. So if I send positive voltage, it's going to open up the VCA and send it to verb. If I send negative voltage, here nothing happens, it goes back to 0. But down on the mimeophone, you can see that sort of. I have a. If anybody knows, this is the only way I could get this to work, is to do rectify the negative half and then do a full rectify. Otherwise, it just never seemed to work. If somebody knows a better way to do that, let me know. But either way, it doesn't really matter because it works. So I just have a chromatic sample chain in here. So you can kind of hear it go into the effects. Track 5 controls some of the CV outs on one of the expanders. Number 1, that's going to be size for the verb. 2 is going to be tilt for the verb, and 3 is going to be the decay. A mimeophone, the first one is the amount of repeats, the second is the zone, and the last, I might have that backward, and it might be rate. Yeah, this is actually rate, and then the last one is the zone. So you've never used a tracker before, that's what just happened. That's kind of an important thing. The best way to think about trackers is essentially a load of knobs. If you turn the knob stays there until you turn it back. So I hit stop, and the decay was kind of going out of control, and it's because I had it up too high, and it's not going to snap back to position when you stop it. It's going to stay there. That applies for basically everything in it. So if you turn the probability up or down on some particular function inside the Nerdseq, it's going to stay there even if you delete it. I think there's some workarounds some of the Nerdseq whizzes would know about. I think there's like kill or a few other things, but I just generally kind of keep track of everything. Inside of each one of these, I always keep the mod at 5. That's nothing is getting effective that way. That way, if I kind of copy and paste them, you know, I always have that 5 there to kind of bring everything back to normal. While we're kind of going over some of those CVs, also on the Morphogene, I have the dry wet, number 4, and then pitch is going to be 5, gene size is 6, and slide is 12. Number 7 here, that controls the pitch for all of the samples inside the ER-301. I don't have enough CV to have pitch control over each particular sample. I could probably make it happen on the Nerdseq side. It would be a little messy, but I don't have the inputs available on the 301. But it kind of, for me, it works just as well to have pitch over everything. So. Let's see. What else should I talk about? That's the basic. That's how it works. Maybe I'll just kind of start messing with something. I kind of put these in here because it's a little bit easier to understand if you can actually see it happening. Just, you know, for each sample slice, it's a particular note. The way I'm generally using it is more for pretty aggressive glitch stuff. Things like this. That's one sample. That's where a lot of my rhythms and stuff come from, is that there's rhythms inside these samples that don't necessarily line up with everything else. So I'm just going to kind of start going with this. If I think of something to point out, I'll stop, but either way. So, generally speaking, on the real complicated, complex noise-wise sample chains that I have, I try to be diligent about in every octave, B is always basically empty. There's no sample there, or maybe there's just a tail, a small tail of a sample, kind of giving me the ability to just stop everything. Something like that. Essentially, that's what I'll do to make a whole track, is just sort of look around for what works together and what doesn't. One of the things that's cool, especially with the glitch stuff, is so like this pattern, for example, I can just swap these two out and chances are it'll work out. Another big thing I'll do is on tables, which are essentially just another little sequencer inside of your pattern. So this is the BPM. You can get something kind of like a weird sort of swing. What's really interesting with working with unquantized samples is you can hear the sort of rhythms in those different samples. If you change the BPM, the main drum beat, that will change, but the samples won't. So you can sort of look around for even more rhythms by just adjusting either the BPM, or all the way over you have the groove here. That'll just sort of add another that's it. That's basically all it is huge sample chains with 2 really, really powerful modules, 3, really 4, 5, 6. All of these modules are very powerful. Yeah. Trying to think if there's some sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe I should do like a live stream sort of deal at some point. That way, anybody that wanted to could actually ask questions or give suggestions, things like that. But that's essentially how it works. And, the stuff I post online, it generally, for about a minute of music, I'll usually look around for about an hour or so, an hour and a half. And I say look around because a lot of the way this system works is you're basically looking for relationships between different samples. I didn't make any of these drum samples in here, and then also on the 4th sampler I actually have another drum kind of sample chain. It's just kind of cool to have 2 different rhythms to work with, but all of the other like sort of abstract samples, that's all stuff that I've made a lot of times with this system or with the Octatrack or Rhythm or something like that. I'll just kind of mess around with them until I find something interesting. I'll record it, and then I'll just sort of slice it up in Ableton or add some effects, something like that, and pop it in here and have fun. So, yeah. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.